Street. So Keir Starmer resigning. He'll be in place until the new leader is chosen, and that person is expected to be Andy Burnham at this moment in time. Let's get some deeper analysis and bring in Martin Farr, senior lecturer in contemporary British history at the University of Newcastle. Martin, thanks for being with us. All change again at 10 Downing Street. This is really an unprecedented period of political change in the UK, isn't it? Is it all because of Brexit?
That's the word I've banned myself from using because we use it so often now, unprecedented. And it's happening every 2 years, that scene of the podium and the Prime Minister's team watching from the side. It's depressingly familiar, actually, depending on whichever party you support. The frequency is very concerning. And we're having many more questions about whether Britain is indeed governable. Can any party, can any Prime Minister satisfy the demands of the electorate? This is a person who less than 2 years ago won a majority of 174 seats and yet was found to be wanting in almost every area of being Prime Minister. So much so that someone not even in Parliament until Friday is going to replace him. The scene you just showed in the House of Commons when he entered the Commons to sign the members' register was extraordinary. This person had been elected to Parliament to be Prime Minister in a contest that won't take place now because the momentum behind him is so great, given the scale of his victory in Makerfield in Manchester last week, and the view of the Labour Party, its MPs and members, that only this person can A, unite the party, and B, face the challenge from the far right, as they see it, of reform and restore. Their concern, and this was intimated by Burnham's comments as victory in Makerfield on Friday morning, early Friday morning, was that it's the last chance. And I think he meant not just for the government, but also for the Labour Party and also possibly for the British system of politics.
And was it a big mistake when, after having won, as you point out, that massive majority 2 years ago, the Labour government then went into a series of policies which seemed really against what most Labour voters would go for? They targeted pensioners over heating allowances. They targeted people over invalidity benefit. These kind of things would really turn Labour voters away from what I think they were expecting and didn't get. Was that the beginning of, the rot setting in very early for the Starmer administration?
Yes, I think so from the outset. I compare it to the 1997 government, the last time Labour were elected with a comparable majority. And that government was much, much better prepared than this. In Tony Blair, it had a more naturally effective Prime Minister. And you can't, one could blame Starmer for not being a different person, but he lacked the kind of empathetic manner and demeanour, and he lacked the wit and the nimbleness which one might have expected from a lawyer, which Andy Burnham has in spades. But Burnham has a few days to prepare for office, possibly a couple of weeks. Starmer had several years and still wasn't prepared. And this is the fundamental problem, I think, was the constraints they placed on themselves because they were so anxious about appearing to be a tax and spend Labour government that they closed off all the serious options they had of raising revenue by electoral pledges not to increase taxation in the three main taxes. So they were forced to make the politically disastrous decisions of trying to get money from small pots around the country, which caused a great offence, such as independent school fees, the winter fuel payment, as you mentioned, the two-child benefits, all of which, or the last two at least, were reversed under pressure. But the impression given wasn't of a party or government listening to voters. It was a party in the government which had made a mistake and was backtracking. So poor decisions, then reversed, repeated and repeated, as well as other examples of misjudgment on the part of the Prime Minister, which was why the trigger for the events we've seen today really was the Mandelson affair, which blew up in February and threatened to take him with him at the time, and I think has done so in a slightly longer timescale.
Was it a question of Starmer's Labour government trying to be something to everybody, and then at the end of the day really becoming nothing to everybody? The influence of the far right, Farage, etc., in the wake of Brexit, pushing the electorate towards more extremes, basically Starmer and his government unable to really fill the gaps because they weren't quite sure what they represented.
Yes, I would make the point, though, that although the Reform Party and Farage are described as far right, they would dispute that appellation. They would say that they are a Conservative party that is votes in the interests and acts in the interests of voters who feel betrayed by the major parties. And to that extent, someone like Sir Keir Starmer, who is a London international rights lawyer, is very much the person they would say is out of touch with most voters. That Farage and Rupert Lowe, although interestingly Farage and Lowe's background of a much more socially higher socioeconomic class than Keir Starmer, this was a very working class government. This is the first government, first cabinet we've ever had, I think, certainly since the First World War, with no members of the cabinet educated privately. It was quite a working class cabinet, quite a left-wing government. But one of the reasons why that didn't cut through, as you imply, was the failure, or the inability rather than failure, the inability of the Prime Minister to be able to communicate that effectively. He's extremely poor in interviews, extremely poor on the stump, not able to admit error and to try and explain away things which the voters were obvious were failings on his or the government's part. I think Burnham will be fundamentally a much better communicator. Now, that is necessary but not sufficient to be a successful Prime Minister. He will inherit the same challenges that Keir Starmer has been grappling with, and there's no borrowing costs have gone up today, for example, already. There's no money pot that he can use to satisfy the demands of voters or indeed of ministers. So this is the easy bit. This is a very popular politician who will discover that to become unpopular, you only require yourself to become Prime Minister.
Nicely put. I'm wondering whether Andy Burnham, as the man of the people, as he is cast, and I bumped into him at a football match, for instance, and he was just among other people talking politics, talking football, very approachable. That's going to change, clearly, if he becomes Prime Minister. And I'm wondering whether this kind of image that he has will be enough to carry him through, because you need a lot more substance behind just that facade, don't you?
Yes, you do, although football is something Starmer also had in spades, and his team were close to Westminster, so he could go and visit regularly. I suspect Burnham will make regular trips to Everton on Merseyside, to demonstrate his affinity with his particular team. But whereas Starmer was authentically football, as is Burnham, for some reason Burnham comes across more authentically. If you can fake authenticity, then that's really the key to being a politician that's successful. And I'm not saying Burnham's faking it. It's natural. He has that natural. Bill Clinton, it was similar in the American system, just a natural way of emoting and engaging. But as you imply, that is not enough in itself. And one of his weaknesses for his critics is that he's not deemed to have a clear political profile. That, of course, was the fundamental problem for Keir Starmer. He's a politician without politics, and that came across desperately, visibly as Prime Minister, and it didn't as leader of the opposition. Burnham has a clearer profile, I think, where he sits politically, his values. But in policy terms, all we have really is Manchesterism as a concept, which broadly defined, insofar as it is defined, is about public control of utilities, which were privatised under the Thatcher government in the 1980s, and that kind of neoliberal financial capital imperative prevailed under the Blair years, and indeed from the crash of 2008. He wants, I think, to, if not reverse, but certainly to reclaim the commanding heights, to use Harold Wilson's phrase, the last Northern Prime Minister we had in 1964, the commanding heights of the economy, and to run these industries, to run these concerns for the sake of the public. So the public realm, I think, will be much more strongly delineated and supported by this Prime Minister than it was by the last.
Indeed. Harold Wilson, MP for Huyton. Andy Burnham, born in Liverpool. There's parallels there to be had, and I've noted what you said about unprecedented. I shall strike it from my vocabulary for now and take your advice, sir. Thank you very much indeed. Great to see you, Martin. Martin Farr, Senior Lecturer in Contemporary British History at the Newcastle University. Great analysis. Thanks for joining us. Much appreciated and much needed. We'll keep watching for all developments, of course, on this.